Under the scope.
Hey everybody, Jared and Shane and Carrie and family here.
Oh, you can't see them at all.
They're in the background, they're little ghost people. Guess what? We're reviewing the big Star Wars movie, everybody.
Yay!
Star Wars Rogue One.
Our new December tradition.
Our annual Star Wars tradition, Jared.
Yes.
This, you might have seen a couple commercials for this film.
Maybe a couple.
Lightly advertised over the course of the past 6 weeks or so. This is not part of the Star Wars. I don't even know what the word would be.
It's
trilogy?
not part of the core series.
The core series.
None of the trilogies. The prequels, the original trilogy, or the new series. This is a brand new film, an anthology series, sort of subtitled A Star Wars Story.
And it clearly is.
Yes. So this is the first one. We have more to come, but this is our first glimpse into what the larger, expanded film universe is going to be for the Disney-owned Lucasfilm.
And this tells the tale, Jared, of the rebels, a ragtag group of fighters, trying to obtain the plans to the Death Star.
Yes. This was alluded to at the beginning, in Episode 4, A New Hope. At the very beginning, as you remember, they're escaping with the plans.
Yes.
And this is the story of how they got those plans.
Yes. So, fair warning, spoilers aplenty in this one.
Sure.
So, if you don't want to hear it, don't listen. Jared, tell people who starred in this and
oh God,
a little bit more about.
I'm not going to get them all. I mean, the top people are. You've got your lead, Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Diego Luna as Cassian Andor.
Yes.
Mads Mikkelsen as Galen Erso. You've got Ben Mendelsohn as Director Krennic. You've got the voice of James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. Who else?
You've got Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera, not Saw. Riz Ahmed, which you may remember from HBO's The Night Of.
Terrific in that, by the way.
He plays, what, Bodhi? Is that his name? Bodhi Rook or something like that?
Yes, let's say Bodhi.
Is it Danny Yoon, I think, who plays
I believe that's correct.
Chirrut, and I forget who plays Baz. Or Baze. Sorry, Baze.
Wow, Jared.
And the voice of Alan Tudyk as K2SO.
427.
K2SO.
That was close.
The surly reprogrammed Imperial security droid.
Yes. So we said this was about the stealing of the Death Star plans, Jared, but give us a little more color in terms of how that came to be.
So we start out in the past, even more in the past than usual, with a young Jyn and Galen and Mom, whose names I forget. They're on this isolated planet, and apparently it turns Galen was a Imperial scientist who decided he didn't want to work for them anymore, so he left to become a farmer. But his past catches up with him as Director Krennic lands on the planet and basically forces him to come back and work on this new super weapon for the Empire.
Yes.
Smash cut after the title. We're now in our present day. Jyn has grown up. I think it's 16 years later or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Jyn has grown up and she's become a bit of a troublesome person. Always getting into. In fact, we see her locked up
in an Imperial prison.
Yes, and then there's a jailbreak and she's set free. We meet our co-lead, I guess, Cassian Andor. Yep. He's with Rebel Intelligence, and essentially the first half of the film is sort of assembling the squad. Yes. We kind of meet all these characters on these various planets, and they all sort of come together eventually at Rebel headquarters on Yavin 4. Good old Yavin 4, the forest moon. Or not a forest moon. Yeah. I don't know.
The moon.
The fourth moon of Yavin.
The jungle moon. The jungle moon.
The jungle moon, not the forest moon. The forest moon is Endor. Sorry.
Yeah. No Ewoks in this one.
So, and it becomes Galen has somehow sent a pilot, an Imperial pilot, out with a message that he's planted basically a fuse, a failsafe into his design, and that it is possible for the rebellion to destroy the Death Star. But they need the plans. Yeah. They need to get the plans in order to analyze them and figure out how how to actually light this fuse.
And the rebellion really didn't even believe that the Death Star was around, Jared.
No.
That's the rub here.
Well,
these guys are, you see them,
developed in secret.
You kind of see them splintered and not agreeing necessarily.
Right. It's an alliance, but it's a very loose alliance. It's like,
it's kind of like what happened in the prequels, in the sense, you know, these politicians can't get along and can't get on the same page.
Eventually, though, our band of heroes, along with some additional reinforcements they pick up with at the Rebellion headquarters, decide that they're just going to go rogue. And they're just going to go take it upon themselves to get these Death Star plans from the Imperial Records planet of Scarif, or whatever it is, some facility where the stuff is stored, and they got to go.
You got to have some.
You got to go bust it out.
Crap.
You got to bust it out. And the third act begins with crazy man.
The busting out of stuff.
So there we are. That's sort of your story.
All the meanwhile, you get some interesting cameos by Darth Vader. You get a digital recreation of
Grand Moff
Tarkin, Peter Cushing. And you get quick appearances by a lightsaber. You get quick appearances by
one lightsaber.
By some droids, and you get a lot of interesting.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the C-3PO and R2-D2 cameo on Yavin 4. Very brief.
Yes, and then you also have, which I pointed out to Jared, is that you've got a lot of the pilots that you've seen in Episode 4, interspersed into this film as well. So there is high continuity, and if you are a Star Wars fan,
rich with references,
rich with crossovers. You've got crossovers with the cartoon show Rebels. Makes a couple of appearances.
Saw Gerrera, as we know, is a character from Clone Wars. I mean, it's everything is this whole universe is being tied together.
Yes.
Kind of through this film.
Yes. But I guess the question is, Jared, is it successful? Do they get it right? Is this story worth telling? Somebody asked me that exact question. Is this story worth telling? Or is it a money grab?
What do you think?
I don't think it's a money grab. I mean, I do think.
It is a money grab.
It is a money grab, but I think that it.
Are we okay with them grabbing our money?
Yes, I am okay with it.
Good. I agree.
You know, I think overall it's a very successful movie. I do think the first third was a bit slow.
Yes.
It took a long time to wind up. The Forrest Whitaker character.
He's just a weirdo to begin with. Forrest Whitaker always brings some sort of weird characteristics to his acting, and no exception here.
He's weird,
very strange,
and I honestly think he was probably a bit underplayed. Underdeveloped. I mean, that whole front part of that movie. I mean, you had to have this setup. I think they probably could have simplified it a little bit, if you want to know the truth, because they bounced around from a few planets and this and that.
Yeah, I sort of agree with some of the criticism I read in advance, is that the initial, assembling of the team sort of throws a lot at you and goes to a lot of different places and really doesn't have much to hold itself together except for its sheer momentum.
Yes.
So it's got that going for it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It's just I think it took me a little while to sort of settle in and there was just so much ground to cover initially to kind of establish all these characters and sort of make them somewhat interesting and have you care about them at least.
Maybe too much ground. I mean, I feel like they were lucky that they had some very charismatic people playing these characters.
Yes.
Because if you'd have actors that couldn't hold their weight, I think that it would have been a bit more of a failure.
A formidable cast, one might say.
And the other thing that I struggled with, and I'm sort of getting the negative stuff out of the way first, is the fact that everybody spoke with such heavy accents, and they're speaking heavy accents and talking about weird names and stuff like that, that I had a hard time understanding what they were saying.
I enjoy
to the point where I was like, what are they talking about?
I enjoy the diversity that they're bringing to this universe, because it has been pretty white bread in a lot of cases. Yes, but sometimes the accents with the words were hard to understand.
Yeah.
It's one thing if they're speaking words that we know with an accent, you can kind of figure that out from context, but once you start throwing out made up terms and places and stuff like that, and names that we've maybe heard once or read, it does get a little difficult.
Yeah,
but
it's tricky.
What are you gonna do?
It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that Jared and I talked about was the fact that you have an all-digital Grand Moff Tarkin, and you also have another all-digital character at the end of a younger version of an actor, and it was close.
It was very close.
It was very close in terms of being 100% convincing, but it was not 100% convincing. I think that the young Tony Stark that we saw in Civil War probably was a little better, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I felt that was a little bit better.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think it's maybe they had more reference material to draw from in building that model.
And
or
you have Robert Downey Jr. alive doing that role,
Right.
motion capturing himself. So
Sure.
it's a matter of smoothing out his face, you know, essentially. So, and even that wasn't perfect, but it was a little bit better. Still, it was a valiant attempt, and I would definitely not hold it against it. And if someday they wanted to go back and do a special edition of Rogue One and clean that up a little bit, I would not be against it. But on to the good stuff, Jared.
Right. I mean, I think that the film benefits from having that Tarkin character in there.
You have to have it. I mean,
he's so tied to the Death Star and this particular moment in time that for him to not be there, especially if you're going to have Darth Vader involved,
you have to have
him in some fashion. So, you know, a 90% effort or 90% success rate on that. I think they're very, very close, but that uncanny valley, it's really, really hard to climb out of.
Yes, it is. But, you know, it does speak to the richness and depth of this film, especially for people that like Star Wars. Like, I'm curious to talk to Carrie about what she thought of it. Maybe she didn't like it. But if you are a Star Wars fan, I mean, there's so much that ties you into what happened before and what happens after.
Right.
And it's done so seamlessly. Like, it makes you want to go and watch A New Hope. And even though you've seen it 1,000 times, I mean, it literally picks up right where it left off.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's amazing.
Once we get to Scarif and the main set piece unfolds, it is relentless. It is. I was completely gripped. I was, you know, I actually felt for these characters. Didn't want them to any harm to come to them, even though they all didn't quite make it.
Yeah, that's the other thing we have to talk about
Right.
is how brave they were, but how essential it was that you had to pretty much kill the entire team.
Right.
They couldn't live. Anyone that was connected to this sort of had to sacrifice themselves because they're never referenced again.
Never referenced again. I mean, we see the I don't forget what Akbar's people are called, but
the
we see them.
Calamari.
We see them in this one, but we don't see them in A New Hope, and it's because their contribution to the fleet at this point gets completely wrecked.
Yes,
they're gone. So they sort of have to make A New Hope make sense. And so for that, a lot of destruction and a lot of death has to happen in this one. So, and it all happens, like I said, at a relentless pace, right up to the last frame. There's no coda, there's no pause for breath at the end. It's just pow.
Yep.
Credits roll.
And I have to say, when they first introduced Vader, I was thinking, man, this is going to be kind of a waste.
Right.
But
we didn't really need this, did we?
But once they brought him in at the end, it was a perfect payoff. It was absolutely showing the power and the nastiness of Darth Vader, which you don't really get to see anywhere. And you get to see him strangle some guys in other movies, but this is the one where you really see him cut loose.
This is sort of the hybrid Vader. We get the
Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees Vader, where he just goes through and cleans house.
Well, we sort of get to see what a Darth Vader would be like as interpreted. We get to see what he would be like now that we had the prequels happen and we saw how Anakin was as a Jedi.
Yes.
That sort of kind of reframed how those types of characters are.
Yes.
And so, I mean, you're going to update how Darth Vader moves and how he fights, and he's not going to be as stodgy and British as he was in the original trilogy. He's going to have a little bit more panache.
Yes.
And vigor. And it was welcome.
Yep.
Terrifying,
quickly,
I would say.
The acting was on point. I think that given even with the multiple accents, I think everybody that was in it was quite capable.
Yes.
And exceptional. Felicity Jones carried the weight of an important role, and she did it very well. Correct?
I'm not paying for the rights to that song.
What else? Directing. Let's talk about that quickly, Jared.
Sure.
Visual styling. It is a Star Wars film, updated but treated with the utmost reverence.
All of the locations felt authentically Star Wars, and I was very pleased to live in that world for 2 hours again.
And you will never live in that world again, Jared, because they're all dead.
That's true.
They're all dead.
That's true.
Right, Audrey?
Yeah.
Right. So, why don't we just take a second to catch our breaths, Jared, and give this a score, shall we?
The Scope score is 3.5 stars.
So what do we got, Jared?
3.5.
3.5 stars.
And
So
a different exposure because we stopped and started the camera and it decided to do whatever it wanted to. So
we feel like it was a great Star Wars film. A little slow in the front, and as I said in the break, you lose 1/8 of a star for including a Walrus Man, Dr. Evazan
probably unnecessary,
cameo.
but
Totally unnecessary.
we call that fan service.
That felt a little George Lucas-y, like when George likes to throw in everything in the Phantom Menace, and
Or like when Boba Fett walks in and then just pivots to the camera.
yeah.
No Boba Fett.
We don't
in this
need
one,
it.
by the way. But I was absolutely exhilarated by the back half of this film.
So there you go. Successful, and it makes us excited for the next Star Wars film.
Then I will probably see it at least 2 more times in the theater.
There we are. Jared, you know what else you could see multiple times if you wanted to?
What?
This Scope video.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Because it's that good. And if you do...
I would recommend cutting instead. Okay, don't do that. Watch the video instead.
If you do want to watch this and you do want to contribute to the positivity of the Scope, what do you have to do, Jared?
Well, fire me because I'm not positive, obviously. Or you like, comment, and subscribe down below.
It's just that
Subscribe.
easy. Subscribe to this. So it is, Jared, we are mere hours away from more Scope madness with our retro cartoon review.
Right.
A storm of the century coming. We've got a busy weekend. So let's wrap this up. So for my beautiful wife, my beautiful daughter, and my beautiful friend Jared. I'm Shane. This has been the Scope. More reviews coming soon. So until then, Jared. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves once again at the end. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I have. Fear not, Scope faithful. Days shall pass as if they were but a moment, and Jared, Adam, and Shane will return with another thrilling episode. Until then, send your comments to comments@thescopeshow.com or leave a voicemail message by dialing
612-21-SCOPE. That's 612-217-2673.
Thanks for listening, faithful fans. This is Tony Partington saying adios. Tune in next time to another terrific edition of The Scope.